Welcome, my name is Colleen Tauke and I'm a sewing specialist for Fons & Porter. In this tutorial we will talk about putting together blocks for the quilt called On Safari. For the pattern for this quilt, to purchase or download, please visit our website. We're going to be working with 10-inch squares of the wonderful animal print fabrics you see in the quilt, and we're going to pair them with a chocolate brown. They are different sculptures and designs, but they're all that chocolate brown that kind of gives our an eye place to rest. So to begin working with plush, you will find that it will lint. Every cut edge will leave a little bit of lint behind. So using a simple brush like this, we can pick up all that lint that possibly could end up either on us or in our workspace, but it helps keep things a little neat and tidy, so keep one of these handy, okay? Now, plush then is a woven base, and in one direction will stretch, the other a little less stretch. And as quilters, we're used to working with fabric that doesn't stretch. So let's see if we can do something about the stretch. We're going to have you cut 1-inch strips of a non-woven, fusible, lightweight interfacing that you can find in most fabric stores. So in the back you'll feel the beads of the iron-on fusible material. You'll want to follow the directions that come with your product on how long to heat, whether to use steam or no steam, and then adhere those pieces. They just need to overlap a little at the corners. I'll show you the placement here. I'm not making a double thickness at the corners. I'm just going to join them with a little overlap. That way, when we heat this and fuse it in place, it'll reduce the stretch and make sewing with this plush fabric a lot easier. Okay, so here I have one that's nice and stabilized. You'll see I don't have stretch on the outside edge. And I also see that there's a piece going across diagonally. If you've done triangle squares before, this is the same method, but you'll see that we are going to be using 1/2-inch seam allowances, not 1/4-inch seam allowances. So that means that this center strip needs to be a little wider to accommodate our seam allowances. So what we're doing is adding that piece, and then we're going to be marking. We're going to use a simple ruler like this, and just like you do on normal triangle squares, we're going to actually mark the center line. It makes it easier for us to remember where our cutting line is going to be, and then you're going to work 1/2 inch on either side of that. So then go in, make sure you've got 1/2 inch marked, and I'm using a chalk liner, which is a great tool for this because it just walks along and leaves me a nice cutting line, or a stitching line, I'm sorry. And I'll make it nice and dark so you can see. Then we're going to go 1/2 inch on the other side of that corner to corner line we had. For more tips and things of working with plush, we also have at our website Working with Plush that you can also view. So now that we have the center cutting line and the 2 stitching lines, we've now prepared this block for piecing. So we'll take this one out. And remember I said that each of the prints was paired with the chocolate brown. So we've got a print here that's also prepared in the same manner because we're going to be creating that seam through both thicknesses. We don't want to stabilize one and then have the other drag behind. We want them to be nice and stable. So now we're going to, the other thing we need to keep in mind is to look for the nap of the fabric. That is the direction of the brush. Now this goes down. If I were to bring my hand back the other direction, you'll see the ripples effect that there we have. So the nap goes in this direction on this piece. Here, the same. If I were to brush back, you'll see the ripple effect again. It's great because it tells you which direction it wants to go. So with both of these placed in the downward direction like this, we're going to put them right sides together. And I've stabilized this in the right direction, so you want to think about that when you put your stabilizer on, so that my stitching will go through both of the diagonals that I've stabilized. And the other thing is we're going to bring in some pins. This is a fairly long piece to stitch, and because we have that nap, that thickness there, it is going to cause the squares to want to ride one over the other. So we're going to put in pins about every 2 to 3 inches. And that will give us a happier effect in the end, because we don't want to have one be extremely long over the other when we get across. Now that's that one seam line, and there's one on the other side, so we're going to pin on that one too. Always place your pins perpendicular to the stitching line. That way you have the chance to easily come in and pull them away. And I'm going to be doing, second thought, I'm going to place these, the head, out this direction. It'll become evident very soon when I stitch it why I've placed them like this. And one down here. Now, working with plush also means that we need to set up our sewing machine a little bit differently. I've attached the walking foot to my sewing machine. I've stitched, set my stitch length for about a 3.5, which is a whole step or a step and a half longer stitch than we do when we normally piece with cottons. The reason why is the threads tend to embed into the fabric, and if for some reason you do have to take stitching out, you'll actually be able to find the threads. Otherwise, they'd be so deep into the fabric, you wouldn't be able to take them out. The other thing is, if you experience skipped stitches in your piecing, change your needle size to a 16, the type you would use for a denim fabric. It has a thicker shaft and will make a larger hole going down, letting the thread ride nicer down through the fabrics and back up. So that is one little troubleshooting thing, that if that happens, switch your needle size. It's fairly easy to do. And then you have a really great product in the end. Okay, now we're going to stitch on those lines that we created down across. And you can see that if you're right-handed, if you're left-handed, it'll be just the opposite. But as you approach each of the pins, you can easily slide the pin out by just grasping the top. The first time I pieced with the cuddle fabric, I thought, but my kids have decided that those are their favorite quilts in my house. In fact, I thought maybe one was going to walk away this weekend. This is the warmest thing. Okay, when I get to the far side, then I'm going to leave the needle in the fabric, raise my presser foot, turn, and skip across the road to the other side, to the other stitching line. That would all be in the seam allowance, so it's okay to do that. Pivot again with the needle down, turn, and we're going to come up the other side. And now you'll see why those pins, I placed them so the head would be right there for me to pull them out as I approach them. And the wonderful thing is you're doing a diagonal seam across the stretchy fabric, but it's not moving. The wonders of stabilizing fabrics. Okay, and we're going to get all the way across. And then if you've done triangle squares in the past, you'll see, notice that it's the same method you've done before. But now we've done it with a completely different kind of fabric. Okay. We've stitched down through, and you can see how thick that fabric is. The stitches wanted to embed themselves already. Now we need to cut across that, and you can use a rotary cutter, you can use the scissors. It doesn't matter, whichever you have handy. You could go through and stitch all of your blocks and then put them all on the cutting mat and do them all at once. Kind of an assembly line. Now I'm going to cut on that diagonal, corner to corner, all the way across. And remember I told you to hold that, keep that lint roller nearby. Here's where you're going to want to use it. As you come in here, these cut edges may put out some lint depending on your finished fabric, and you can see it's picking up quite a bit as I open this up. And that would probably be on the sewing room floor otherwise. So we can pick up all that lint, keep it neat and tidy, and now we have created 2 triangle squares of that print combination with the brown. Now you're going to want to take this over to the ironing surface, and you're going to use a warm iron, but you're not going to put all the pressure on it. You don't want to totally collapse the fabric. You just want to heat it so that that seam allowance will fall open. And snip through there. And we're going to press our seam allowances open. We're used to pressing them to one side, but because of the bulk, if we were to leave them all to one side, we would create a really thick product. So seam allowances, they just want to lay right open for us. Again, lint roller is great to keep things from being fuzzy. We've created the block, and you would just go down through that, match each of your browns with a print fabric, and you will see that all of the chocolate brown is kept in the lower right-hand side of this quilt so that we can have a great design. Join your rows together, add the inner border, chocolate brown, and then finished with a fun print. Now there's one last thing to think about, and that's the binding. When we bind with a plush fabric, we don't want to create the French fold binding that we normally do with a cotton quilt, because we can't use that many thicknesses. So I'm sending you to a tutorial, Binding with Plush. You'll see me show you how to stabilize it in the same manner you've kind of stabilized your blocks, and a great way to add the binding to your quilt. For other of our videos, visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.